All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the truly monumental, multi-layered legacy of Ratan Tata. We're looking at a guy whose impact on Indian industry and, honestly, global business is practically unmatched. But, this isn't just a straightforward story of a company getting bigger. We're going to explore how a life filled with inspirational achievements, massive global expansion, and seriously forward-looking startup investments eventually slammed into one of the most profoundly complex legal showdowns in modern corporate history.
Now look at this quote. "Take the stones people throw at you and use them to build a monument." It so perfectly captures the absolute resilience that defined his leadership. Ratan Tata wasn't just handed a well-oiled machine. He had to build, adapt, and sometimes fight tooth and nail to maintain his vision for the Tata Group. Through economic downturns, cutthroat competition, and some really severe internal battles, his playbook was always the same. Absorb the impact and channel it into building something that lasts.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, the visionary leader. Second, architect of India's startups. Third, the Tata mystery conflict. Fourth, the legal showdown. And finally, a complex, enduring legacy. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Visionary Leader, Transforming an Empire.
So, appointed as chairman of Tata Sons back in 1991, Ratan Tata absolutely did not just sit back and maintain the status quo. He drove this massive era of diversification. I mean, we're talking about a period where revenues grew 40 times over and profits soared by 50 times. He led these incredibly bold, calculated risks, acquiring giants like Jaguar Land Rover, Tetley, and Chorus Steel. He totally envisioned the Tata Group as a global powerhouse. But, and this is key, he always anchored that massive ambition to ethical business practices and long-term sustainability.
Moving right along to Section 2, Architect of India's Startups, Investing in the Future.
Here's where things get super interesting. After stepping down as chairman in 2012, his strategic backing didn't just provide some spare capital, it literally fueled the growth of India's entire startup ecosystem. Over a single decade, he backed more than 40 startups. We're talking household names today: Ola, Paytm, FirstCry, Urban Company. He watched Ola pivot from an Uber competitor into a massive player in EVs. He saw Paytm explode from a simple mobile recharge app into a fintech behemoth. For him, these investments were hands-on learning opportunities about emerging trends, allowing him to actively mentor young founders and help propel India into becoming the world's third-largest startup hub.
Just listen to Kaushal Dugar, the founder of T-Box. He pointed out that his team was basically a bunch of misfits trying to disrupt a 100-year-old traditional tea industry. But getting a positive nod from a giant like Ratan Tata, that was the ultimate vote of confidence. Sure, it brought financial backing, but more importantly, it instantly validated their entire business model to the rest of the world. It was a real game changer.
And he was always laser-focused on solving real problems. When he met the founder of Urban Company, his advice was brilliantly simple. India needs what you are building. Keep the quality high, and the rest will follow. He wasn't out there just chasing wild valuations. He cared deeply about the actual utility and the quality of the product being built for everyday people.
Section 3. The Tata Mystery Conflict, a clash of philosophies. Now, we have to talk about the friction. This wasn't a simple case of good guy versus bad guy. It was a fundamental clash between two wildly different management philosophies. On one side, you got the traditional Tata philosophy, championed by Ratan Tata himself. This view saw the conglomerate as a nation-building institution, prioritizing long-term social impact and legacy assets, like the nanocar project, which was all about giving affordable transport to millions. On the flip side, you have Cyrus Mistry, who took over as executive chairman in 2012. Mistry brought in this highly analytical, data-driven approach. He was all about strict financial sustainability, demanding clear paths to profitability, and he was ready to ruthlessly cut underperforming businesses, what he called legacy hotspots, like Tata Steel Europe and Tata Teleservices.
The structural tension at the heart of all this is just fascinating. Tata Sons, the holding company, is uniquely registered as a Section 8 charitable company, and the Tata Trusts, chaired by Ratan Tata, hold a massive 66% majority. Their core goal? Philanthropy. Meanwhile, the Shapoorji Pallonji Group, which is Cyrus Mistry's family, held about 18.4%, making them the largest individual shareholder outside the trusts. So you can see the friction. Mistry often felt his authority to modernize was being severely bottlenecked by constant intervention from the trusts. The trusts, on the other hand, felt Mistry was straying way too far from their historical social ethos.
Well, this simmering tension finally boiled over on October 24, 2016. In a totally sudden boardroom maneuver, Cyrus Mistry was abruptly removed as executive chairman.
No prior notice. The resolution was just slipped in under any other business during a scheduled meeting. Boom. This sudden dismissal absolutely shocked the corporate world. Mystery, as you might guess, refused to step down quietly. This kicked off a sprawling, messy public relations and legal war that shook the very foundations of Indian corporate governance.
Which brings us to Section 4, the legal showdown, governance on trial.
The legal momentum in this case was a total roller coaster. Mystery's camp filed petitions claiming minority shareholder oppression. At first, in 2018, the National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT, threw his case out, basically taking the conservative stance that boards have the absolute right to remove their chairman. But then in December 2019, the Appellate Tribunal delivered an absolute bombshell. They reversed it. They declared his removal illegal and actually ordered Mystery to be reinstated. Wild, right? Finally, the Tata Group appealed straight to the Supreme Court of India, setting the stage for the ultimate showdown in March 2021.
At the very highest levels of the judiciary, this whole saga turned into a profound balancing act. It was the ultimate test, the autonomy of a company to manage its own internal boardroom affairs versus the rights of minority shareholders to be protected from prejudicial conduct.
Front and center in this debate was Section 241 of the Companies Act, the rule against oppression. Basically, conduct that is burdensome, harsh, and wrongful. Mystery's camp argued that his abrupt removal, totally without notice, combined with the alleged shadow control by the trusts, clearly formed a pattern of oppression against their minority stake. The Tata Group fired back, arguing that removing a chairman is just a standard, legitimate exercise of board powers. Just because a board loses confidence in its leader, they argued, doesn't mean it's illegally oppressing minority shareholders. It was a massive test of exactly how high the legal bar for actual oppression truly is.
Another huge battleground was Article 121, which deals with affirmative voting rights. This rule essentially handed the Tata Trust's nominated directors a veto power over key board decisions. Mystery claimed this created a toxic, parallel shadow control structure that marginalized minority voices and totally undermined his authority as chairman. The Tata Group passionately defended it, saying, look, these rights have been on the books and known to everyone for decades. They argued it was a totally necessary, legitimate tool to protect the unique, philanthropic legacy of the Tata Group.
Ultimately, the Supreme Court of India stepped in with a landmark 2021 verdict, ruling decisively in favor of the Tata Group. They firmly reaffirmed what's known as the business judgment rule. The court flat out stated that it is not the judiciary's job to second-guess boardroom decisions or to act as some kind of superboard. They ruled that a subjective loss of confidence in a chairman simply does not amount to legal oppression, and they fully validated the affirmative voting rights as entirely legitimate governance structures, especially for a private company with such a unique charitable mission.
Section 5. A complex, enduring legacy. Synthesizing the journey. When you look at the big picture, Ratan Tata leaves behind an indelible, deeply multifaceted mark. He's the visionary who drove an Indian institution to unprecedented global heights while championing massive philanthropic commitments. He's the mentor who empowered a whole generation of young founders, literally fueling India's modern startup ecosystem. But, his legacy is also permanently tied to this massive legal crucible. It's a dispute that completely defined modern corporate law in India, setting hard, lasting precedents on minority shareholder rights and strictly defending the boundaries of the business judgment rule for generations to come.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. The whole Tata mystery dispute showed us that even the most respected, carefully structured institutions can fracture when deep-rooted tradition collides with aggressive modernization. So how should the legacy institutions of tomorrow navigate the fast-paced, data-driven demands of the 21st century without losing their foundational soul? It's a massive question, and honestly, one that every major business is eventually going to have to answer. Thanks so much for learning with me today.